part 2 of 2 of an interview with Joe Atwill on white male privilege.
Welcome to another episode of Our Interesting Times. It's my pleasure to have Joe Atwill back on the show. Joe, how are you doing?
Good, Tim. How are you?
Very good. Thanks for coming back on the show. Tonight, well, of course, you are, Joe is an independent scholar, researcher. He is the author of Shakespeare's Secret Messiah and also Caesar's Messiah, the Roman conspiracy to invent Jesus. His website is caesarsmessiah.com, and he also hosts the Secret Society Revealed, a weekly podcast. So, Joe, I was listening to your show, and I think the topic was preempted by current events, the missiles that our new president decided to lob on Syria a few weeks ago. But you and Jerry just briefly touched on an issue which is very interesting because one thing is very provocative, but it also requires, I think, further analysis. It's this concept of white privilege, particularly white male privilege, and let's say how it's largely a myth, particularly in the past couple of decades.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think a lot of statisticians have already done work on the claims that were made by the feminists in terms of employment disparaging because of gender. I don't know if you've ever seen any of this stuff, but in general, the you could show that you could put in it like in some kind of particular variable like needing to leave your job basically for the length of time that a woman would need to recover from a pregnancy. If you put that into, the equation of the sort of labor statistics of employment and wage earning, excuse me, most of the advantage that the white male had just disappeared. It was just a question of basically different lifestyles and different educational levels, because at that time the white male was getting a better education. But that there wasn't this kind of structural fairness that people were talking about. This was a myth, and I think, at this point I'm not even aware of statisticians that argue that case anymore, because so much work has been done showing it wasn't true, but it had a tremendous amount of power. And it began this ball rolling, which ends up with affirmative action, which is both gender and racial promoting of non-white males, right? So, since affirmative action came into existence, there have been some state-level resistance to it. There have been a lot of lawsuits, and different states have passed laws. But the federal government continues the practice, and basically the philosophy of businesses just dramatically changed. And once the HR individuals started to realize that the affirmative action needed to get taken care of, well, the next thing you know, we have a kind of a structural situation that's permanent. So now. A lot of companies have, they have this, kind of bonus points if you're, a female, bonus points if you're black, so that basically you have to outperform to be a white male. It's very common.
I was talking to somebody who's talking about the sexual revolution. The sexual revolution was there to kind of break up, increase the divorce rate, break up traditional families, and so that this occurs in the 70s and going into the 80s, where divorce becomes more common. And in broken homes, you have kids that are subject to much more trauma and abuse, and this produces a lot of the, I believe, the sexual confusion that we're seeing today. Because one of the major causes of that, I think, is absentee fathers and different fathers, or abuse. And in single family homes, the abuse rate skyrockets. Single-parent homes, yeah.
Yeah, and of course, a media where 50% of the content is glorifying homosexual relationships.
Yeah, and if you watch the latest, pathologizing or characterizing heterosexual relationships as dysfunctional.
Sure.
I mean,
remember, the statistics that actually came about by researchers who followed Kinsey, thinking that his claims for the rates of homosexuality and lesbianism were too high. I mean, what they found was that lesbianism was 0.5%, and gay men were like less than 2% of the population.
Yeah.
So now you have these television shows where, lesbian and gay relationships are literally at 50% of, sexual activity that's represented. Well, where does this come from? It doesn't reflect, anything that was real. It simply reflects, unfortunately, what they want to do with the population, which is to create these non-family producing sexualities.
Mm-hmm. And another part of the attack of the white male, obviously the sexual revolution, is you break up the family and you increase the divorce rate, and or even if you have a woman who's employed out of the house, he's not going to get the maintenance that a man would have gotten in a traditional relationship, like prepared meals and support and.
The thing is, you have to have two incomes, so the mom isn't going to be able to be a stay-at-home mom. I mean, like families that have stay-at-home moms are extraordinary in terms of their income. And what happened was, is that the wages were debased, because the Federal Reserve, stole the wealth through interest that it charged the American citizens on money it invented out of thin air, right? At the same time, it was debasing the currency, debasing the buying power of the currency. I mean, gold was $50 an ounce, in the 1950s. It's, $1,250 an ounce now. And so this just shows the fact of the currency debasement that, means that, you've got to have the two incomes. It doesn't have to be this way, Tim.
And also the psychological warfare is promoting the consumer culture, whereas people think they need things when they don't. If you look at a household in 1970, and let's imagine you had the accoutrements and the luxuries of a 1970 household you do today, you'd find your budget would be would be a lot less. And also, if you do the math, even with employment, is most people barely break even when it comes to the cost of a wardrobe, commuting time, just the stress level.
Everyone's going broke.
Yeah. And
like over 50% of the population basically has nothing. I think it's probably, and these statistics I think are actually optimistic. I think probably that 80% of Americans have no savings and no future, no economic future really. And so this is what they've been able to do to us. They did it incrementally and so slowly that no one really noticed that was going on. And they, had propaganda that was always being given to the people about, they hate us for our freedoms.
Yeah.
We've had the sexual revolution was really a valuable cultural event. Feminism has really had these great results, and the Federal Reserve is your friend. Well, I want to talk about a worker's paradise, Tim. And my worker's paradise in my manifesto is America 1953. That's the worker's paradise. That was when there were unions, when the currency wasn't being hadn't been debased, where moms could stay at home with a husband who had a normal type job, right? Just nothing out of the ordinary. People could own their homes, where the public schools reflected the ethnic communities that people grew up in, right? Hey, this is a worker's paradise. Now that worker's paradise is very peaceful. I know, you say, well, some women were unhappy. Look there's racial discrimination. Okay, nothing is perfect. But those problems could have easily been solved from that platform.
Yeah, without destroying.
Now they're never going to be solved. You look at the disparity, the economic and kind of cultural differences between like the enclave whites now and the inner city youth. I mean, when you have an economic catastrophe, you're just going to have a bloodbath. Mm-hmm. You know, because everyone's going to be out there with automatic weapons defending their little plot of turf. So, you know, we just permitted very clever anthropologists, sociologists, to design government policies that ended up in our current situation with a debased currency, with a debased family structure, and with debased sexuality, and we're in a fix at this point because we're so close to the stage where I think they can do, large scale population reduction because how are you going to resist? So anyway, it's time to, and I mentioned this the last show, it's just an all hands work party. The questions that really need to be answered, the information that needs to be disseminated is, why did they create the counterculture? Why did they create feminism? Who are the individuals inside government, the secret society? I mean, you can see an outline, right? It's pretty easy. You got the secret societies, right? Bohemian Grove, the Freemason, CFR, and you've just got a ton of Jewish anthropologists, sociologists. A good place to look is there's a video that's on YouTube called "A Conversation About LSD," and it's absolutely fascinating. Jan Irvin and I have deconstructed the conversation, which anybody who knows anything about MK Ultra can just see that these groups are just the group is just lying their heads off. But you've got a whole bunch of secret society guys, and you've got all of these, individuals that have these backgrounds in anthropology and stuff. And it's there that we can start. It's one of the places we can start to kind of understand, well, who were they? What was the motivation? How do they control government? Because you looked at now and people, thought Trump was going to drain the swamp. and I was telling him, before, the election was even close, I was saying, no, he is dirty. He's been handpicked. You can see, like with Trump, because of, his family background, the connection with Roy Cohn, which is, obviously a problem. And the worst red flag is the fact that Trump's uncle was given Nikola Tesla's his intellectual estate for vetting, and then he removed it from public. No one ever saw it after he did the review. So you can just see that his family is wired into the guild somehow. We need to get genetic testing to know exactly how he is. But I knew Trump was, was just a lifetime actor. But I was going to mention that one thing that everyone can help with is we need expressions to be able to understand, what's going on. Like, it's really useful now that the expression false flag is something that people, they know what it means. Mm-hmm. And the concept weaponized, this is, it's very valuable to have that term, so people can understand weaponized feminism, weaponized integration, weaponized anthropology. And another term I hope gets very popular is lifetime actor. So that when they go, well, gee, Donald Trump, he's just this pompous, crazy billionaire guy. He's not some kind of secret society. No. Lifetime actor. A lifetime actor could spend a long time developing the role that he's going to use to, basically have some influence in culture with. Look at Gordon Wasson, the guy who created the beginning of the counterculture, the beginning of the influence of psychedelic drugs. I mean, he claimed that he was just fascinated by mushrooms, right? So lifetime actor, that's a really valuable, and see, if we get these terms, if we get a vocabulary, then it'll help people's minds sort of organize reality. and to bring up the right questions, like Obama, right? Well, gee, everything looks great. He's got an Arabic name. He's black. He's really going to stop the wars. And, because he's a black community activist from Chicago, we're going to get some social justice where the bankers are going to get their comeuppance for stealing all this money in the '08 financial crisis. And then look what happens. Obama invades Afghanistan, plays golf, doesn't arrest a single banker. Well, he's a lifetime actor. Mm-hmm. He's just created, it's a role that he was given at a very early age, no doubt. And then now he's been living, pretending to be this individual, but always he's had the connections into the secret society. Always he's been someone that they could rely on to do their bidding.
Yeah, all his political opponents were taken down for him.
Yeah, well, once they get the guy, in mind, there they go. Because look, the democracy is fake, right? Since the media is controlled, the democracy is fake. I mean, Tim and Joe, we don't know Obama. We don't know Donald Trump. He doesn't invite us to Jupiter Island. So we're only, having these images given to us by this all-powerful media. Well, if the media is fake, then there is no democracy.
Yeah.
We're choosing between, people that they create.
But that's that realization. People invest so much emotional energy and time into these figures that were presented to us on the screen.
Yeah.
It's a screen. It's a show. Yeah. And yet people really think they know who this person is, what he stands for, or who she stands for. And they're just put up there. It's amazing to me that people don't when they're watching the news, they actually think they're watching a presentation of information when they're watching a production for manipulation. Mass communication has always been for mass manipulation. It was studied for that effect. I mean, I think Jan did the thing on the Radio Research Project out of Princeton, and Orson Welles and this stuff, and all the reporters that we've been presented, Walter Cronkite, came out of OSS and OWI. They're all intelligence agents, or actors like what's his name? The guy in London, Edward R. Murrow, was a stage actor.
Yeah.
Live. This is London. This whole tactic of breaking into a show to give you news. That's all. It's all manipulation, because that's what Orson Welles did. I remember on War of the Worlds. We interrupt this program to give you, and they do it with regular news. Just like remember Fox News had for years after 9/11, they had that Fox Alert and the swooshing sound.
And it's interesting, like in the War of the Worlds, where they did that experiment with H.G. Wells's crazy, aliens from outer space, mm-hmm. and Orson Welles, presented it to the public, and supposedly a lot of people thought it was real, and there was panic. Well, the Princeton Radio Project, which produced it, had people from the American Jewish Committee, Adorno.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
And it also had Leventhal, who was an MK Ultra psychologist. So you can see that this was just one of the guild was doing an experiment to determine, what is believed by masses of people concerning communication of this kind. So, that was just, an experiment that, was part of this whole process by which they could basically then create television. And then you have CBS, with William Paley from the OSS and the all-seeing eye staring back out at you. I mean, it's just ludicrous, right?
Yeah. If you look at entertainment, it's progressively isolating, right? You go from theater, you go with people, you're at the park hearing a band play, or to the point where now you're watching television just with your family or by yourself. Then you get multiple televisions. You're just watching television by yourself, and now you've gone through with the internet and these little devices where people just are becoming low spectrum autistic individuals, just staring into the screen, walking around.
Yeah, I mean, and now they're getting all these apps where you don't even have to be at home to watch, something as stupid as ESPN. You can just hit the app and there it is. So basically the media can just follow you everywhere. Yeah, I mean it's really a destructive force.
And they have this,
no question.
In the technology there, think something like augmented reality or virtual reality, where as technology improves, they're going to be able to create an environment that is so attractive that people are going to shrink from reality and want to indulge in virtual reality or augmented reality.
Yeah, but what you're really looking at is just the implementation of Huxley's Brave New World, because once the devices get sophisticated enough where they'll be able to tell your emotions just by the sweat glands it can detect on its and like then they'll basically just control you like a robot.
Mm-hmm.
And this is and has always been the plan.
Yes.
And the individuals in Brave New World at the lower levels are unthinking. They've just been conditioned and have very low intelligence genetically, and they're given soma to handle any stress they might have from these lives that they have to live. So they're basically like a biological robot. Well, that's what the goal has been, and now these things are being brought about for that purpose. And it's, this old story, Tim, where what's presented to the public is the paradise. Here's the iPhone, here's the apps, look how useful it is, right? Here's the workers' paradise, here's the Politburo, look how everything is going to be great. Here's feminism, this is just terrific. Here's sex, drugs, and rock and roll, Tim. That's going to work out wonderfully for you, right?
Yeah.
So you always are given these stories about, culture is going to change, but everything is going to be better. The problem is that it ends up with everything being worse every single time. The slavery becomes more and more intense. The intelligence becomes less and less. The production of any kind of cultural energy that could resist this dictatorship is diminished. So, we have to reject the story that is being given to us about the iPhone, about the values of it. We have to try to use social media while we still have the minds to think, to basically see if we can create an organized resistance.
Yeah. Well, simple things like if you're a parent, don't buy one for your kid.
Absolutely.
Parents they acquiesce. They surrender their authority to these things. Well, everyone's doing, these family data plans. Oh, great.
Yeah.
Do you really need this? Do you really need this? Come on.
I think that what we want are, to create family internet-free zones, where families come together. Of course, this is idealistic, but this is kind of a direction to head in, see if you can, if I had children in my house again, that would be something I'd be just desperately trying to do, is to find other families that had the same kind of political perspective that I do, so that then we could meet and socialize our children in environments that we control.
Yeah, and that's been completely lost with the internet. That's people used to be aware of these threats, and but with the internet and I guess the Communications Decency Act, which really is the Indecency Act of 1996, where they allowed for the transmitting of pornography on the internet. But again, it's one of these things where the technology becomes it becomes such a convenience or a necessity with your work, and they really work you over so you get used to it, and pretty soon you become to depend on it for everything you do, and then that's where they got you, because
that's right. I really wonder about the effects of pornography on young males, especially. I really am worried about this, because I am afraid that the effects will really be long lasting.
Yeah, they'll drop out. Who wants to deal with a real girl?
Right.
Then you have the girl on the other equation, all the girls themselves who have, they've lost all sense of, in many ways, lost a lot of their sense of modesty or how to interact with males in a healthy way. You get the college campuses with the feminists and the date rape activists and Take Back the Night stuff. It's really Take Back the Night is just every man's a rapist. could be a rapist, that type of stuff.
Yeah, and you can just see that the BS where they will focus the media, the campus media, on this idea that the males are all potential rapists, right? Mm-hmm. But have no response or criticism at all of the massive pornography.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
right. So we're here to persecute and make everyone paranoid about the males. Okay, well, fine. But what about the massive pornography that's coming into the campus vis-a-vis the iPhone and the internet? Mm-hmm. Does this have any effect at all on these rape situations? And since it obviously does, why aren't you attacking that?
Mm-hmm. Well, that would require going back to maybe an old-fashioned way of doing things, like doing with coeducation, perhaps, or segregated dorms at least, or something. But they don't want this because all these things are social experiments. If anyone ever goes to a college orientation with a parent, you'll get that, where this is your chance to be away from your parent and experiment. That's the whole tone. And why do parents feel compelled to pay for that? Why do they feel compelled to pay for college education? That's another question you got to ask themselves. Is it college education? Is it really an education? Or is it indoctrination? And does it really pay anymore? And is the purpose of education that you land some sort of mediocre middle class job, or is it you get an education? And if so, then why are you supporting these large institutions that are destroying your children? I mean,
I mean, there is no greater cesspool in the United States than the university system. I mean, it is just absolutely disgusting. Mm-hmm. We just need to put that thing out of existence. It is just a cesspool of cultural Marxism, and the thing is, it's such a weapon. It damages the kids so severely mm-hmm. when they go through it because. I don't want to name schools, but, I had kids in the Ivy League and, I had, we would visit and spend time in the dorms. I mean, it's just beyond belief. Everything is same sex. There is just a culture of sexual hookup, everywhere. And of course, drugs are just, you name it. And this supposedly we're in these like elite schools with supposed students and stuff. I mean, it was just beyond belief. It just would, I'm just sort of a curious person. And because of that, I really wanted to get into like the dorm lives of these schools. And so when I was there, I really, kind of nosed around and got a chance to go inside. It was just beyond belief. And the other thing that I found was just so shocking is prescription drug use. Yes. Adderall and antidepressives. I mean, I think half the kids are on these things,
They were I had some kids, my brother as business employs college kids, and they were talking about how they casually take some of these drugs to help them focus on tests.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why the suicide rate is going up. That's the letdown, and of course, when you talk about the college system, it feeds right into the pharmacological, medical, industrial complex. And of course, we all know about the university system's links to MK Ultra.
Yeah. I had a personal experience. It's so broad, it's even hard for me to talk about. But I had a very good friend pass away over the weekend. He had cancer. I've known him my whole life virtually. He was a white male who didn't make it to 70, no family, was a drug addict, and was given just the worst imaginable medical advice, right? Had lymphoma because he'd been taking drugs for his hepatitis C, I'm sure of it. And then they gave him chemotherapy and then radiation. And then, of course, a year later, the stuff is back. And then they say, well, you can have stem cells or hospice. In which case, if you want hospice, then even though I think there was a chance, I believe that he could have recovered, they put you in these situations where you're getting 20 milligrams an hour of morphine. And, I don't think many people come out of hospice.
No, I think some people say it's designed to expedite your death.
And it's you have to make, that's my suspicion. I was just, I was very angry about this because I've actually worked with a guy for a couple of years who's had throat cancer. Really lovely, smart guy. And he just, when he came down with it, he looked at the statistics and he said, forget all of the stuff that the AMA is peddling. I don't want any of it. Mm-hmm. And he actually just walked away from it. And so I had a chance to actually, because he lives out of the country, but I was on Skype with him almost every day. And my friend who after his lymphoma treatment, because he had no family, had nowhere to go, he lived with me while he was trying to recover. So he was there for 3 months. So I really had this interesting opportunity to see the different reactions to the different approaches. And in the guy who was out of the country who wasn't using any of the AMA stuff, he took oxygen, massive doses of vitamins. He had all kinds of different approaches with how to deal with it, and then mainly nutrition. He was really very, very careful about diet, and he went out of his way to get the kinds of vegetables that supposedly had this good effect. And I saw him go from kind of low energy because he was fighting big tumors. You could see him. And after a couple of years, his energy level was high. His consciousness was brilliant, bright. He was just full of energy. It was amazing. And the tumors were reduced. And then my other friend, it wasn't just that the chemo and the radiation failed, but his mind was gone after the treatments. And they never came back. And this is something, again, that goes right into the white male, kind of situation we were talking about earlier, is that this is this is the medicine that's waiting for you at the end of the cultural assault. The medicine is the cherry on the sundae, and it'll finish you off, because I saw my poor friend come down with what's called chemo brain. I don't know if
I've heard of it. Yeah, I've heard of it, yeah.
Well, I mean, he couldn't remember anything.
Yeah.
And he went from someone who's really quite literate. He had been a drug addict. He had a lot of problems, but he was very smart, very kind of a clear mind in a lot of ways. And after the chemo, he never regained it. He was always confused, basically. And his energy was just, he was 6'3", weighed 133 pounds. So he wasn't very energetic. And then eventually it all fell apart, and the disease came back, and then they gave him the hospice, and he passed away. Well, the fact is that even if, the person, I don't want to give his first name, but even if the person who was using the natural approach had failed and died, he would have still been the right approach, because his consciousness was brilliant. He was full of energy and life and health, right? Mm-hmm. And his mind was always good. Whereas my other friend, after the treatment, he was never the same again. And so, you really, the oncologists, oh man, don't get me started. I mean,
well, they've been trained in a certain way in Rockefeller medicine.
They never talked about nutrition.
No.
They never talked about anything that might produce a healthy immune system, right? They just had drugs for everything.
And the drugs destroyed the immune system.
Exactly. And so anyway, it was just, it was something, and then he passed away Saturday night, and it was like, and I could never get him to kind of turn the corner. I introduced him to my other friend online so he could actually have conversations with him and things. But his trust in the kind of oncology medical science was absolute. He just wasn't going to budge. Yeah. And so, sad, but anyway, that's, I know it's a small sample size, but these are just the two friends I had who had cancer over the last 3 years. And, I'll tell you, it was just no question which one was which one had made the right choice.
But I imagine the friend who passed away probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in drug treatments over the course.
Oh God! I mean, it's just.
Yeah. Yeah.
And of course, the taxpayer picks up all of that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a harvesting system. That's what it is. It's basically they get you throughout life and near the end of life. But that's one way they can get you is through the medical industrial complex and these drugs that will hasten your demise, kill everything, including the cancer. That's the problem. But then when it comes back, you have no immune system left over. So
yeah, and I hate to see conspiracies everywhere. But I really,
it's a business.
I was I had some communication with the hospice, entity, and then I also was able to look into some of the statistics and the philosophies. And I don't want to talk specifically about the one that he was in, but my take after studying hospice is that, man, I would not put anyone that I knew in such a facility under any circumstances. If they need morphine for pain management, just give it to them at home, for God's sakes. You basically lose all capacity to control what goes on to your loved one once they go inside these facilities. And the morphine schedule that they're legally able to take people onto, because they have this ability to do whatever they need to do for pain management. Oh man, I spent like a better part of, when I found out, that he passed away, I was studying on it. I just don't see how the morphine schedules that they have, when they get over 20 milligrams an hour, man, I don't see how anyone can live for more than a week.
Yeah, it just destroys. Yeah.
Well, because you stop, you can't breathe. You're not getting enough oxygen in, and because your breathing is slowed down so much, and the morphine is interfering also with the uptake of the oxygen in the blood system. So, I mean, I just think you're suffocating to death. I want to do a little more research before I come out swinging on this one, but I didn't like what I saw, and I was, and the fact is that I just think a lot of people will have remission from the diseases. But once you go into these facilities, you're kind of in a machine. I mean, I'm not going to say they're malevolent, but I do think it's mechanical. And, if they see you're in discomfort, well, it's just more morphine. Mm-hmm. So anyway, that's the white male. I mean, you're going to get cancer if you're lucky enough to avoid drug overdose.
Mm-hmm. Something to look forward to.
And then you'll have your morphine waiting for you. So it is not a good situation, and we are all suffering from it. We're all suffering from it. The friend who turned away from the AMA left the United States because he said it just wasn't healthy enough. He says, look, I'm fighting for my life. I need to have really a pure environment. So he went to some place where, he says the food is just naturally healthy. And, that made a huge difference, he said. So anyway, we've got the toxicity, the plastics in the environment, the chemtrails, the media, which, is basically, portrays heterosexuality as a perversion. And then we have the secret society controlling the media, the military, the finance, and the politicians. So this is the white male privilege, Tim.
Yeah.
This is our truth. And something, it's been like this for 100 years. The secret society benefits from slavery, from World War, from munition factories, from racism. The common white European male, Tim, we're the ones that walk into the automatic weapon fire.
Go over the top for God, King.
That's what we do well. Yeah. We go over the top, right? And the problem is there's some other poor bastard from the same perspective, the same, ethnic background. He's coming at me from the other side, right? So, my opinion, the wars are fake. They're just there to reduce the population of certain groups. the secret society controls the military intelligence and the media. It's all just one, the entertainment intelligence complex, to use an expression, is absolutely fake, right? It makes a representation of being for us, but it's just something that's there to hurt us. And, and the quicker the population catches on to this stuff, the better. So, I'm hoping we can do a lot more shows, Tim, and just keep sounding the alarm, because, I'm hoping we'll reach a point where, you won't need to stimulate so much, with presentations in the internet. I'm hoping that, you get like 10 times the number of people who are aware of the concepts, weaponized feminism, weaponized anthropology, that understand lifetime actors, right? You get to that point where instead of a few 100,000, you've got 100 million or 50 million, and then we can really change things. Then we can maybe, make this world a place where we can live and thrive and have a future.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And just acknowledging these things, acknowledging that it is high-level malfeasance, well organized over several decades. And that it isn't something that it isn't left versus right. It isn't Gloria Steinem versus Phyllis Schlafly. It's that's how the conventional view looks at it. It's Gloria Steinem leftists, the counterculture. No. Gloria Steinem's a CIA agent, and once you realize she's CIA, then all of a sudden, all types of questions start being asked, like, what's going on here? That's what you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, there's an article that was in the New Yorker about Steinem, and it was I really thought this was something that the public should kind of get a sense on, and it was written by it was in the New Yorker. It was written by a woman named Jane Kramer. Like to know more about Jane. And it just gave this basically, completely PR version of Steinem's life, right? Mm-hmm. Didn't mention anything about the CIA activity. Didn't mention anything about the Red Stockings statement about her. Didn't mention anything about Ms. Magazine's funding by Catherine Graham, and of her relationships into Project Mockingbird, right? Mm-hmm. Where researchers have found that she was basically the point person for Project Mockingbird, right? I mean, it's just insane. And so this article came out in October of 2015, and I was thinking I would write an article about this, showing what is fake news.
Yeah.
Saying, look, here are the claims that this Jane Kramer makes about Steinem's life, and here are the facts that you can actually go and look at. You can actually look at the letter that between Dulles and Chester Bowles talking about how India needs to be, have some indoctrination work, right? This was written before Steinem gets the Chester Bowles, scholarship to go to India. You can see, the fact that the book she claimed to write, 1,000 Indias, doesn't exist, that the Red Stockings did all this research into it. And then you can just go through all of these facts. You can say, look, here she is in the Helsinki Youth Festival. Here are the Finnish reports on the CIA's attempt to disrupt, the CIA's effort to do violence in these areas. And here's their opinion that Steinem is involved in all of this. Here's Steinem's own admission about being a CIA agent, which is just basically, she just tries to blow it off. And then here are all of the facts concerning the creation of Ms. Magazines, all of these connections into the CIA, into Project Mockingbird, and back to this exact same people that she was working with the Independent Research Service when she started the whole thing, right? So when you put those facts into the little puff piece that Jane Kramer wrote, Then you have real news. Then you got something that people can actually, well, I think we can make a little bit of forward progress here in understanding of culture. And then you look at that. You look at the facts that were left out compared to what she put in there, and you can see what fake news really is. It's propaganda. Mm-hmm. It's there to socialize you. It's there. Jane Kramer wrote something with the idea that she would basically make people incapable of thinking about Steinem as someone who perverted culture.
Yeah, because
right?
They're perpetuating these myths, and people have no idea what's been done to them. How can they even start to correct the situation? They don't know that they've been test rats in a massive social engineering project. It's like when you watch the news, and you'll hear they'll talk about the anniversary of the assassination of John F. Kennedy. They'll just repeat the official narrative, which is absurd. The same with RFK or Martin Luther King, and there's not even an acknowledgement that there's a lot of controversy and doubt regarding the official narrative. They just repeat it, even though the fact that even regarding JFK, the strong majority don't buy the lone gunman, single lone gunman approach. But they keep repeating it,
and they just keep socializing, and it has some effect. But I am hopeful that 911 is just indigestible in terms of the propaganda machine. More and more people are just kind of realizing that could not possibly have, Building 7's collapse just could not be anything other than controlled demolition. And the fact that it isn't being discussed in the media.
Yeah, it's just, what an indictment. What an indictment.
Speaks volumes. You can really see the organized malevolence, right? I mean, Steinem's, the way that they puff piece Steinem is obviously, this is malevolence, but to not be discussing the collapse of Building 7, right? Well, this means that this is just the white, this is the third rail. But you see, the fact that they don't, that tells you that it's starting to cut. Right. Yeah. That, cause if they thought that they could just, puff piece the whole thing, they would actually be doing it. The fact that there is a complete blackout. And I mean, Tim, I've been looking for it. I've been looking for when are they going to be doing the analysis? Cause I kept thinking, well, they'll do some kind of socialization to get people away from the belief that it's controlled demolition, but it hasn't come. And I'm sure that the reason it hasn't is because they know it, or they've studied it and they realize that, hey, wait a second, we're going to lose control of this narrative, right? And this just leads, just like, Gordon Wasson's pay requisition to start the counterculture, or Gloria Steinem's role as a CIA agent, it leads right back to the big question: what in the hell are these intelligence agencies doing? Who's in back of them, you see? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, even though it's a bleak world, but Tim, there's a lot of little points of light, maybe 1,000, to use an expression.
Yeah, there's no reason to get depressed about it because there's so much work to do. Who has time to be depressed? Yeah,
there's just a lot of work to do. And this is exactly right. This is what, I get that, people ask me this. They go, well, I feel depressed. What do you do? And I go, look, the first thing you have to recognize is the fact that your depression is their victory. You have been socialized into being depressed. This is just conditioning. The correct response is to say, they want me to be depressed, but you know what? I actually want to keep living and breathing and have like a life for my family in the future. So you know what? I'm just going to overcome their conditioning and just work all the harder to bring change about. And I'm not going to respond to the depression with inactivity or the fear with paralysis. I'm just going to recognize that these are just psychological apparatuses that have been put into me. And the right response is, once I know that they're there, is they should energize, right? They should be energizing you because you can see that you have been damaged by these bastards. Mm-hmm. They have not, it's not just theoretical. They have damaged you. And so you want to get over the, the socialization. One thing I like to do is just talk about 911 in public places. I always bring it up and I go, oh, yeah, the government did that. People will be shocked. But then occasionally, and I mean more and more, people aren't shocked, Tim.
Yeah, more people.
I've heard this. Yeah, it's happening. So, this is why we just need to keep developing our information resources, and also keep developing our courage. Speak out. Don't be silent. Speak out. If you really want to have, a public, courageous leader come to basically spearhead, a local movement, you can hire Tim Kelly.
So, let 100 flowers bloom, huh?
Absolutely, brother.
Okay, Joe. So I'll let you go.
All right. Well, thank you, Tim. It's been a real pleasure, and hope to talk to you soon.
Yeah, we'll talk soon again. Wither the white male.
Yeah, that's right.
It's again where it's one of these things where it's people just assume that they have it all, they have the power. But listen, I have not yet got an invitation from the power elite. All the white males, the bankers, or whether it's Gates, or whether it's
all those guys, the guild, right?
Yeah,
I was looking at a list of.
It doesn't trickle down to the common white man. So
no, it doesn't. I was looking at a list of media personalities that they had linked to the CIA. This was in the 70s, and it was everybody. I mean, everybody was either like CFR, CIA. I mean, the entire media cohort is a secret society. Mm-hmm. They come on, they have their smiling faces, and they, oh, gee, Tom, oh, gee, Gene, and, and they roll their eyes when they talk about conspiracy theory. Man, the whole thing is just a bloody weaponized anthropology pageant. Turn that crap off. That's something I hope we can do a show on, is the Operation Mockingbird. It's related to some of the stuff we've been talking about, but
yeah,
they've really got a lot of data now about media personalities that the CIA had basically either bought off or had control over, or were members of the CFR. I think that's really good for the public to know, that it helps them understand that the media is completely fake.
Yeah. And once you realize that, then it's like, okay, then that's what you have to. That has to be your starting point.
Let's get down to work and get some real facts. Yeah. It's just like the Gloria, like Jane Kramer's insane, mind-numbing life of Gloria Steinem article in the New Yorker. I mean, it's useful to use as a starting point for real analysis. But you're using, just to see how they're basically trying to socialize us.
Yeah, just from a journalistic standpoint, the real story is so much more interesting. You think,
yeah,
someone would write about it, But no.
Well, yes. Well, don't you think someone would write about the fact that Gloria Steinem was a CIA agent and then lied about it? And then other feminists called her on it. And then after the fact, then suddenly it turned out that this Operation Mockingbird had come in, was in existence. And, oh, by the way, everybody involved in the Ms. magazine is a member, the financing, yeah, I mean, you'd think that would be a pretty good story, something to be kind of interesting for old Jane Kramer to write about. The New Yorker might find it kind of interesting, but it isn't going to happen because those magazines are all under the same, guild control. So it's not going to happen. But it's too late for them, Tim, because your show happens.
Yeah, and many others. Yeah,
and your audience is growing. It is growing. And this is a lot different than the New Yorker, New York Times, CNN. Their audiences are collapsing. So good things are happening, brother.
I have a better growth trajectory.
Well, you have a growth trajectory. Whereas they have a death trajectory because a lot of people now just realize that they're just fake.
Yeah, why even bother? Why even bother? It's
just a way it looked, and they shouldn't bother because exposing themselves to those things, it just exposes themselves to weaponized anthropology.
Yeah, fear, misinformation, disinformation.
Yeah.
If you ever just subject yourself to like a couple hours of regular programming, you realize how bad it is. I occasionally have to watch it because of where I am at a given moment, and it's just amazing to me.
Yeah, well, it's
the
like
BS that they're pulling is just.
You ever seen the movie Manchurian Candidate?
Yeah.
And you've seen these like laboratories where they pull the guys in and they like, put pins in their brains and, well, I mean, that's our media.
Mm-hmm.
It's like instead of CNN, instead of seeing, the smiling face of Wolf Blitzer, if you had like the doctors with their like gizmos put in your head, but that would be the real picture. You see, then you'd know that's really what it is, that they should take, CNN should have like the introduction to the gizmo, brain, messing around room that's in the Manchurian Candidate films. And then they would at least be honest about what they are.
Well, they have the graphics. They have the good looking women that occasionally sue you.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. That's right. Well, that's, again, these are just, these media, theatrics, they're just there to distract.
Yeah. Now the media,
so stupid.
The news media is now the news. I mean, that's just,
yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, that's right. It is sort of fascinating how this is slowly happening where more and more it's like the news media is the news. Fake news, O'Reilly's sexual, harassment thing. But, it's, they're doing this to try to drive people away from the news. I think they can start to see the Tim Kelly effect is coming on, but it's too late. There's too many of us.
Just over the weekend where I was at my brother's house, everyone was talking about that, and I said, it's no big deal. The casting couch has been around forever. I don't care. It's show business. Women know the terms. Don't do it. You sell your soul. I would say, ask women sometimes, what would you do? I would tell a young girl not to go into show business because you sell your soul.
Absolutely.
And that's what you do. There's no way to get around it. I'm not shocked by it at all. It's wrong. Of course it's wrong. I don't know if it's illegal or not. Just no one has a right to be a Fox anchor news babe. I mean, just watch the shit. Why do you think these women are hired? Give me a break.
Exactly. It's it's an organization run by evil and that demands that the individuals involved with it have to be evil or just so stupid that they can be, they're like a Delta class in Brave New World.
Yeah. Yeah. Hollywood's the same way. I mean, Hollywood, it's probably worse out there, but whatever, so I'm not shocked by it.
Tim, it's always such a pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah, great. So
I just feel like you deprogram all of my Manchurian Candidate. Just getting a chance to chat with you really helps. And
it cuts both ways. So
yeah, well, thank you so much for the talk, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, great. Listen, have a good evening. When I post this, I'll send you the link. Thanks.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Tim.
Good night. Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.